My name is Darren Impson. I'm one half of Team Ripper.
I'm Matt Taylor, captain of the Ripper.
Team Ripper is a two-man fishing team out there competing with the best bill fishermen in the world.
Everyone thinks that what we do is insane. They just don't get it. We'll go further and faster than anybody else.
Matt's the captain, I'm the angler. Anybody else is in the way. And our goal is to go out there and dominate. Matt and I own our own businesses. So we've got full-time jobs, and the type of fishing we do is almost a full-time job in itself. We have to make money so that we can fund our adventures and dedicate our time to not only our businesses, but our families, and still have time to get ready for these tournaments.
This is full commitment. You know, we've got 2 daughters and a lot of money to do this. We have a business. And when we go for these tournaments, everything just kind of goes on hold.
When Darren bought a boat from Matt in 2005, the team first came together. They started fishing for fun, then later entered some tournaments fishing out of Darren's 28-foot Hydrosport.
After fishing a few kingfish tournaments and getting the crap kicked out of us offshore, big seas, high winds, talked about someday getting a bigger boat and how amazing that would be to, you know, have a yellowfin. And we found one.
I'll never forget it. That thing was sitting up there. It was just a beat up piece of shit. It was gray and off-white, had a hole that big in the back of the transom of it. All 3 engines were blown. I mean, just gas in the bilge. I mean, it was just terrible.
Matt and Darren see the yellowfin's potential and decide to buy the boat. After 3.5 months of hard work, Team Ripper is born.
Team Ripper is a 2-man bill fishing machine. We're like a SEAL team. I'm the angler, Matt's the captain. Anybody else is in the way.
Darren is one of a kind. I've never met an individual like that in my entire life. I've never seen a guy that can go a day and a half without sleep, take a 30-minute power nap, and be dancing around on the boat. He's like a little bulldog. He thinks he's a pit bull. But no one's gonna tell him he's not a freaking pit bull.
Matt is he's an interesting guy. He's a man. He knows what he's doing. There's not a better captain out there, and you know, I'm proud to be a part of the team with him.
Over the last few seasons, Team Ripper has forged a reputation for making long runs offshore in search of huge fish. They're also known for being the only 2-man crew in the large offshore tournaments.
Anybody can do what we do, and we're trying to show people that. It's totally accessible to anybody. You don't have to have an 84-foot sport fish boat that is a couple $1 million. And we show that we can go out there and do what they do, and we can do it better.
No matter what happens, we're here to show the world you don't have to have $1 million budgets and big giant boats to kick ass.
Matt and Darren arrived late last night in Biloxi after trailering the Ripper for 10 hours from Tampa. There are a lot of last-minute preparations before tournament blast off at noon. 2 of the most important being ice and fuel.
Plan is to burn off the fuel bladder on the way out, 300 gallons, which will burn most of it. And once it burns off, unhook it, hook up the main fuel tanks, roll that thing up, put it away, and then we got a full tank when we're out there. Bladder's full, ice is full, we're loaded. We have not put any more weight on here. Locked and loaded, buddy. First tournament of the year, you know. Break everything in, get all the gear rigged, and right now, everyone's in first or last place, however you want to look at it. So just excited for the opportunity to go out there and try to make history. Got everything locked and loaded, T-minus 1 hour, and we're off to the races.
It's go time. The competitors are ready to go. Matt and Darren plan on running 250 miles offshore to a spot they know well. Most of their competitors won't go half that far.
Sure enough, we pass over a rip line about 50 miles offshore, and we had to take the opportunity to fish it. Caught a bunch of dolphin. You know, we're eating up bait pretty quick when you get on a rip like that, and we decided we needed to continue on to get to our spot so that we could scope it out before dark and get hunkered down for tuna fishing.
You know, when we initially started doing this, you know, our intentions weren't to go 200, 300, 400 miles offshore. We started out like anybody else, fishing 60, 80 miles, and I'll never forget, you know, the first time you ever go 80 miles offshore, you think you're Christopher Columbus and it's the end of the world. And it's like anything else, once you do it, you get comfortable with it, you know, 80, then 100, then 120. Then once you get certain areas, once you go so far, it opens up a whole new fishery that's unfished.
The oil rigs off the coast of Louisiana create a very unique form of fishery and are a popular spot for catching large tuna and marlin in these high-stakes tournaments.
Yeah, boy! Yeah, boy!
Located roughly 100 miles offshore, teams risk a full day of fishing in pursuit of a big money fish.
I mean, there's really no place where you can go target yellowfin tuna and target blue marlin like the oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico.
Team Ripper land their first tuna of the tournament. A small fish, but a sign that Matt and Darren are in the right spot to start fresh in the morning.
Caught a few fish last night, nothing big, but weather is beautiful. We got all day today to grind out and try to catch our marlin. Marlin, they're an eating machine. All they do is eat. They frequent areas that have a lot of bait. Saw a ton of bait, so, you know, that's a good sign.
It's a marlin. Come on, get the f***ing harness.
We pulled up to this rig, and left rigger goes off, blue marlin. Got the fighting belt on, got the rod in hand. Excitement was off the charts. I mean, everybody's screaming, grab the rod, get the lines in. Super psyched at that point. You know, to have a blue marlin on in a blue marlin tournament, that's what we're there for. Had about a 45-minute fight, got him to the boat, successful tag, got everything on video. Team Ripper was pumped. Morale was high, for sure.
In these tournaments, entry fees can cost almost $80,000. In some cases, catching a large marlin can amount to a payout upwards of $2 million. But with 80 other vessels looking to do the same thing, sometimes catching one just isn't enough.
Another billfish. I don't even think they're in the tournament.
We thought it was a big wahoo. Got it to the boat and it was a huge sailfish, which we just called it in, and apparently nobody's caught a sailfish in this tournament for 5 years.
It's getting dark and Team Ripper presses on into the night. Sticking close to the rigs, they hope to upgrade their current tuna to raise their chances of wins across multiple categories, earning them a bigger payout.
Big yell, fix it. Get the gap. Hold on, don't let go. Don't let go. Woo! That's how we catch you.
Darren and Matt fish through the night and decide to head back early the next morning for weigh-in. While Team Ripper net a respectable 4th place finish, especially for a center console, it's unfortunately not enough to earn the guys a payout, leaving them empty-handed.
Today we're prep day. Tonight's the captain's meeting. We leave right after the captain's meeting, so this morning it's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna get over there by 7, start loading the boat. We were set to fish the Emerald Coast Blue Marlin Classic this week, which is up at Destin. Unfortunately, the weather was a little iffy. There's a tropical storm in the middle of the Gulf, so we had to make a call and decided to cancel our plans to fish Destin this year.
You know, we were all a little disappointed when we canceled Destin, so we looked. The dates were the same as this tournament.
It's called the Suncoast Saltwater Shootout. We fished this for the last 4 or 5 years.
We have a little bit of a history at it. Historically, I don't want to jinx it, but historically we weighed big fish. And
probably gonna eat about 700 gallons. There's so much prepping that's involved with one of these tournaments. You gotta fuel the boat, you gotta get ice. We don't make ice on our boat like some of these big yachts, so we actually take dry ice with us to help keep our ice cold and frozen. You catch a big fish, and it's gonna burn a ton of ice.
With a full load of ice and fuel, Team Ripper head to Sarasota for the tournament captains meeting and blast-off.
you don't even need that many, you just need
We'll take them.
What can we trade you for?
One of those big
All right,
squid.
cool. All right, come on. It's actually my anniversary.
Is it really?
10 year.
Better call, you got a set call?
It's actually not that bad from here. It's only 166 nautical miles. So, piece of cake.
Batten down the hatches.
Batten down the hatches. Got
Rock and roll.
a couple hour run, and we're out of here.
Team Ripper head to a spot where they've had success in the past. The trip takes them 6 hours, and it's just getting dark as they arrive. They rig up to swordfish all night while they're sleeping.
Today is my 10th anniversary to my wife. So I feel pretty bad. I actually gave her the option when we were going to go to Destin. If not, we were going to go to New York where we got married and all that stuff. But she said, no, I want you guys to go win a Blue Marlin tournament. That's why she's my wife. It's something, you know, something deep inside. When they stay deep like this, usually these are bigger. That's like hitting them with a 12 gauge net, yeah. Nice one. Woo! There's a 35 pounder. He might be bigger than that.
Team morale is high following an afternoon of catching lots of fish. That being said, time is ticking away and the guys still haven't seen a billfish. With a nice mahi in the boat, they do a few more passes of the same area to see what else might be there.
Sounds heavy, huh? He made a run. Oh, he's barely hooked.
We're in the Straits of Florida, and there's an area that it goes from 300 feet to 3,000 feet within a mile. So we're thinking that'd be a good place to hook up to a wahoo or something, maybe a marlin, but the journey here has been a little rough, and we haven't had a knockdown.
You run 6-7 hours in a triple engine boat. Keep it tight. You're outside a helicopter range, so everything you do, you have to be super cautious. You know, if you slip and a gaff goes through your leg or you get impaled by a billfish, so you're just really extra cautious of everything you do.
Double, put the fish on. Big wahoo. Port, give us some gas, give us some gas. Ah, my hand! Big wahoo. Port, give us some gas, give us some gas. Or just...
Hold on, he's going.
Ah, my hand!
That's a good one. How you get him in?
Get this out of the engines. I may be swimming here.
He got wrapped around and started pulling, dude. That's how you pop your finger. Mama, remember the mama had a baby and his head popped off? This is a real life story there.
In the confusion of the team's doubleheader, Matt nearly lost his finger and one of the 5 lines ended up wrapped around the prop. There's an inherent danger that comes with fishing this far offshore, and attempting this with a 2-man team in a center console can be even more so. In the constant struggle of risk versus reward, you can't afford for anything to go wrong. Team Ripper fished through the night. The next morning, Darren and Matt decide to head back early. Weigh-in is at 1, and they have a 6-hour boat trip to get there.
Came back and everybody was really pumped and really excited. There was a lot of buzz on the dock about what we caught.
Yeah, coming back to the dock in these tournaments is awesome. I mean, you know, you got your friends, your family, everybody's rooting for you.
Our wives do a really good job of pumping things up for us when we come back.
You know, huge crowd, and we're really excited we stayed here and did what we did, and we're really pumped about the results.
Team Ripper weigh in a mahi, a tuna, and a wahoo. They take first in the tuna and wahoo divisions and place second with their mahi.
We got 2 out of 3. Biggest wahoo, biggest tuna. Second place dolphin. We can't be upset about our performance. You know, we did really good, and you know, walked away with a couple nice checks. And next tournament, we're going to focus on marlin again and see what happens.
Another week, another tournament for Team Ripper. The nasty weather in Florida over the past couple weeks shows no sign of getting better for the tournament.
First day, we were all prepped, ready to go, fueled the boat up, and a huge storm rolled in. And we decided that we would wait out the storm. It looked like there was a little break in the weather behind it. Sure enough, you know, there was a storm behind that storm. We decided just to go.
Matt and Darren take the fully fueled and iced Ripper back to Matt's house to regroup and figure out if they'll even fish in the tournament.
The day is not going as planned. It started out with a broken toe. I'm dropping a cooler on it. Oh man. So that's not certainly not a good thing when you're gonna go 200 miles offshore marlin fishing. And I'm the angler. I'm supposed to catch the fish.
You don't reel with your feet. You're fine.
We got some serious storms overhead, lightning everywhere. We decided to come back to the house after we got all fueled up and iced up and ready to go. we're kind of stuck right now until this stuff passes over, and we got to decide what we're gonna do.
You know, it's one thing if you're going 20, 30 miles offshore, but when you have a 220 nautical mile run ahead of you, you got to make sure everything's straight. So we decided, let's just go. You know, we'll get there one way or the other. So we took off, and it was pretty bad. The fuel bladder was rolling around, which if you figure that fuel bladder with 200 gallons in it weighs about 1,400 pounds. It was a pretty dangerous situation, so we diverted into Sarasota.
Our safety at that point was in jeopardy, so we decided that we were still gonna get down south because the weather down south looked actually pretty good, but we had to punch through the rough weather in West Central Florida, and we decided that we were gonna take the intercoastal waterway, which was protected from those western winds. It was about a 9-hour journey to get down here, between having to go into the intercoastal, get out of the crazy washing machine seas that we were in that were sloshing the fuel bladder around so that it was dangerous. That was about 9 hours ago. 1:15 in the morning right now. Hey, but we're here, we're safe.
It's flat calm.
It's beautiful. And we're sword fishing.
Due to bad weather, Team Ripper made a last-minute decision to head south to the Florida Keys in search of calmer seas, which doubled their travel time and fuel consumption.
Normally take about 6 hours to get to our fishing destination, 200 miles offshore. This particular trip, it took 12 hours. We finally got to where we were setting up for swordfish. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. We were super stoked that it was calm weather.
They said that it was going to be rainbows and unicorns in flat calm conditions, and they were right.
When we got there, put our lines out, got in the bean bags in the harpoon saloon, you know, we're just waiting for the bite. Unfortunately, that first night, we didn't get a bite.
Get a little bit of sleep, a couple hours, wake up, it's flat calm, a little overcast. Conditions seem perfect, we start going.
First day, the bite was horrible. I mean, we caught a ton of barracuda, but that was it.
Barracuda, barracuda, barracuda. That's all we caught. We didn't catch anything other.
Barracuda or a bycatch when you're doing this type of trolling. It's just annoying. They eat up bait and your time. Time is critical when you're fishing in a tournament for marlin.
You start second guessing yourself and your decisions of what you do because, I mean, we got quite a bit on the line here and we've got to catch fish.
It's starting to get dark and Team Ripper decide to head to a different location to swordfish for the night.
About 1 o'clock, we nodded off to sleep.
Bam, it wasn't even 30 minutes. The rod goes off. And when I say goes off, I mean, it goes off.
By the way that rod was going off, we knew it was a big fish. And I knew I was in for a pretty long battle.
So, hour one goes by. Not really making any progress on the fish.
So the battle is taking on its own shape. I'm starting to get tired, and this fish is kicking my butt.
Hour two goes by. Fish is down darn near on the bottom. Darren was doing an amazing job on the rod, really taking his time. And then about 2.5, 3 hours into it, the fish started fighting totally different.
Something changed in the way the fish was acting. It wasn't pulling off line specifically, and I couldn't feel him move on the other end, which means he probably killed himself.
Darren did an amazing job, started hand cranking it up. It took about 30 minutes. Very tedious.
We had to basically winch it up from probably 200 feet, and it was just reeling in, like reeling in a giant boulder.
Here it comes, and all you see is a big gray blob down there, and at first it looked like a swordfish because its tail was back there.
Look down and it's a shark, a big shark.
Large thresher sharks like the one the guys have caught are often the bycatch of nighttime sword fishing. It is an unfortunate occurrence, but it's part of the business. After a long night, Matt and Darren must light it up today or head back empty-handed.
The only thing we had was a shark, but it wasn't part of the fish that were in this tournament. It wasn't a marlin, it wasn't a swordfish, tuna, dolphin, wahoo. Those were what we needed to catch. So we knew we had a lot of work to do on that second day. I'm sitting in the back of the boat and watching the spread. Out of nowhere, I see this giant wahoo skyrocket into the air about 10 feet and comes down on the shotgun bait and fish on. Got it to the side of the boat. Matt puts a nice gaff in it. Fish on. We got the skunk off the boat. It was a nice fish. We thought it was close to 50 pounds, and we were high-fiving. We were stoked. We finally got a fish on the boat.
Matt and Darren continue on a hot wahoo bite for a few hours, filling their icebox with multiple tournament contenders. That being said, they're still on the hunt for a blue marlin to keep them in the running for the Triple Crown Series.
I've got fish on. I told you this one got eaten. That's what blue marlin.
The guys think they've hooked into their first blue marlin of the Triple Crown. This is huge for setting them up for an overall win in the series.
This could be a 200-pound fish. This could be an 800-pound fish. All right, here's the leader. Okay, crank, 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 crank. Get it in. Leader touch, indicator. Oh, it's a foul-hooked wahoo. Holy, are you kidding me? Went from a blue marlin to a foul-hooked wahoo.
You never jumped.
After another tough few days at sea, Team Ripper head back to Tournament HQ to outrun more nasty weather moving in towards the Gulf.
It's been a very long summer with mixed reviews, mixed bag. We learned a lot, but right now we're in last place in the Triple Crown, not exactly where we wanted to be. We fished one of the 3 tournaments, and this is the 3rd and final.
This has been a tough year for us. First tournament we started out in Mississippi. We fished the rigs, we caught a blue marlin, we caught a sailfish. We thought we were in great shape, and unfortunately out of 84 boats, we ended up tying for 4th place, and we didn't win any money. So that was a big blow to us.
Hold on, he's going.
The Yellowfin Billfish Classic, the first leg of the Gulf Coast Triple Crown Series, was a tough tournament for us. It was pretty humbling, actually. We got the crap kicked out of us by Mother Nature. We had 200 gallons of fuel sitting on the deck, sloshing around. Our safety was at risk. It wasn't a good tournament. We caught a huge thresher shark, which is a very rare shark in the Gulf of Mexico. It was a pretty humbling experience for Team Ripper.
This year, we've gotten the shit kicked out of us. It's been rough. Weather, it's been rain, rain, rain. I will tell you, I'm a little nervous for this trip because we're gonna be 480 nautical miles from here.
This week, we're gearing up and planning for the last leg of the Gulf Coast Triple Crown Series. It's the Old Salt Loop Tournament. This tournament's been going on for 44 years. It's one of the biggest marlin tournaments on the west coast of Florida. To make this journey, we got a lot at stake. You know, we're making the furthest run we've ever made, and we're right on the heels of a hurricane.
it's gonna be right on our heels. It's literally showing going from flat calm to 6 to 8 foot within 24 hours of us scheduled to be home. So if anything happens or we get stuck out there, it could go really bad really quickly. At one point, we'll be 200 miles from any point of land, and there's really no one coming to get us. We always fuel the boat, and then as soon as we fuel the bladder, we leave. So we never let it sit overnight. Go to start the boat, center engine won't start.
We had a longer run, and we wanted to leave by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You know, we were a couple hours off schedule, but still we were gonna get to the rig before dark.
I like how they go offshore, try their hardest, and come back. But the thing I don't like is when they say that there's a big storm offshore, just like the one tournament recently.
The worst thing about being out in the water, away from our families, is knowing that they're worried about us.
Matt and he have their own businesses, they have their own families, they have their own jobs, and they still go out and do this crazy, ridiculous thing, and I think it's amazing.
She doesn't even want to know where we go. She would worry too much.
I don't worry about him necessarily. I don't even know where he is half the time.
So we're cruising along, and we were, I think, about 60 miles offshore, and all of a sudden, you smell it. It was like a wall hit you of just pure gas, like unburnt gas, just.
I look over, I'm sitting in the passenger seat at the helm, and I look over and I just see yellow liquids splashing out against the side of the gunnel.
And there's 300 gallons in that bag at the time.
I hate fuel bladder. The MacGyver mode takes over, because we didn't have an extra elbow bracket on board. It had a rusty pair of channel locks
And a
a screwdriver, and somehow we were able to get the elbow bracket off because it sheared off at the threads.
Well, we capped the weld.
In the span of 15 minutes, we were able to reconnect the fuel bladder, got rid of the elbow bracket, and boom, we're back in business. This is now the second issue we've had with fuel and engines since we left.
In the first morning.
And this is all within the first morning.
With the engine trouble right from the get-go, followed by life-threatening issues with the fuel bladder, Team Ripper is now way behind. After fixing the bladder, things seem to be back to normal. But before long, the guys are faced with another issue.
So we're 250 miles from Tampa, 150 miles to Venice.
Losing RPMs.
Losing RPMs, and all of a sudden the alarm goes off on the engine.
Open up the cowling, check fuel pressure on some Schrader valves, try bleeding it out, making sure it didn't have a block.
There goes the port engine. So we're down to 2. Yeah, Matt's on the sat phone, talking to the mechanic, telling him what happened.
It's 6 o'clock.
And
he said, lines in.
Yeah, we decided, let's just put lines in.
200 miles from land in all directions is not the place you want to have a serious breakdown. Having found a mechanic in Venice, Louisiana, the guys start their long, costly journey toward land. Limping on only 2 engines, they will burn a minimum of 12 hours of valuable fishing time.
So we've had quite the adventure since we left Tampa yesterday. We couldn't get up on plane, so we really had no other option but to troll along at 8 knots with 2 engines. We emptied all the ice from the fish box, got some of the weight off the front of the boat, trying to even it out so that we could plane up on 2 engines, which we couldn't do. You know, we cruised into Venice, record time on 2 engines, going 30 knots.
Pulled in at 9:31 to Venice Marina.
Pulled in at 9:31, and actually we beat the mechanic there. He was running a little late. Here we are at Venice Marina in Venice, Louisiana, and we've got a mechanic coming to fix the port engine so we can get back out and go fishing.
The mechanic arrives and fixes the ripper. The guys are ready to start fishing, but time is running out as they've lost a full 24 hours.
The anxiety and the disappointment, and I mean, all the money we spent, I mean, all these emotions are going crazy in your head, and all we wanted to do was go marlin fishing. And everything was against us at that point. If you've never experienced rig fishing, it's unbelievable to literally have a floating city that you're fishing around at night, especially, where these fish just congregate to these rigs that are literally in 10, 15,000 feet of water, that there's nothing else around. And you know, these tuna fish are constantly eating. They're eating machines. So bait fish congregates around these rigs, and that's where the tuna live. They just spend their time chasing these big schools of bait. And at night, the bait, you know, will try to take cover underneath the rig or around the rig, and these tuna just pick them off one by one. And you've got this rig in the background, this giant structure that looks like something out of Star Wars, that is all lit up, and you know, it's all kinds of noises coming from it, and people on the loudspeaker, and you know, it's like you're in another planet. And there's nothing like rig fishing. And on this trip, we only got one night to do it. And unfortunately, the area that we chose to fish in was just too heavy with current. And you know, it was disappointing for sure.
So we go to bed, sleep for probably 7 hours, 6 to 7 hours. Wake up, it is glass calm. I mean, just glass calm. It was like a big lake out there, not even really a swell. And here was this yellow brick road. I mean, it is the nicest looking weed line I think we've probably ever fished. We end up trolling the rip for 50 miles, and literally all we catch is dolphin.
Yeah.
Mahis.
That's dolphin. No wahoo.
Nothing.
No marlin. Didn't see a marlin, but lots of dolphin.
Team Ripper boats the biggest dolphin of the day, but they know they need a lot more than this mahi to compete. With time running out, they decide to try one last location.
Yeah, so we decided to make a trip down to this drill ship we haven't fished in a year and a half, but it showed it on the satellite imagery, it showed it everywhere. So we make this 30-mile run down to it, and it's not there.
It was gone.
It was gone, it moved. At that point, we knew it was over. We knew it was over.
Yeah, because there was no tuna fishing that night. We were too far from the rigs, we couldn't go back.
Matt and Darren check the weather, only to find out that their 12-hour journey back will be through the outer rings of Hurricane Erica. Without the right game plan, they risk not making it back to their families, let alone the weigh-in. Dealing with storms, rough seas, lack of sleep, and mechanical issues, Team Ripper took a huge risk with a plan to run 450 miles. They've salvaged what time they could for fishing, but they've only boated one good mahi.
As we get older, as we have kids, families, you know, a lot of people depend on us. And, you know, taking these risks like this, things can happen in a hurry. You know, lightning is probably the #1 threat out there. And lightning pops near you. You know, it can be beyond sketchy. Think about the worst storm you've ever been in at your house, and then imagine being in that storm 200 miles offshore in a center console.
All of a sudden the wind picks up. It's literally blowing like 30, 35 knots sideways, pouring rain. Finally get this fish up, and it's a freaking 22-pound blackfin tuna, really nice blackfin tuna, which was unbelievable to catch in the middle of the night trolling.
Like catching a blackfin in a hurricane. We're having a hurricane party.
Tournament fishing, it's feast or famine. If you're winning, everyone's happy and great. Yeah. If you're losing, it's like, man, it's brutal.
A lot of money spent this summer. It's a gamble, and we're literally out there gambling. And
it's high stakes poker.
you know, if you win, it's top of the world. If you lose, at least you had fun. And, you know, we do it anyway, so might as well throw a few bucks on us and always bet on black.
We were calculating the time, and we were going to be really cutting it close. We had to be back to the dock by noon.
And pulled in a pass at 11:35.
Yeah,
somehow, some way, with 25 minutes to spare on a 400-mile journey.
Yeah.
With 25 minutes to spare in perfect storm conditions.
After such a stormy trip, Darren and Matt are glad to get their feet on solid ground and see their families.
When they're gone, it's a little nerve-wracking, but I can't say anything bad about it. We love Team Ripper. We're huge supporters.
When I first see them come off the boat, I'm really excited to like give them hugs and be glad they're alive.
On top of their family support, Team Ripper has been gaining a huge following on social media.
We go places now and people want to talk to us about the Ripper and fishing and what we do, and it's just become awesome.
This guy walked up to us and said, "Are you Matt Taylor from the Ripper?" And then he said yes, and then he probably talked for at least 10 minutes.
And he pointed over to the Ripper and he goes, "See that boat over there? That's the baddest boat on the water right now." And I thought that was pretty cool.
I mean, clearly they have support at home, but it's another thing to have these crazy fans that you don't even know and where they are, where they live, and they're like, "I follow you, man, and what you do is awesome."
The weigh-ins have started and excitement is high. With a lot of big fish brought to the scales, it's bittersweet for Team Ripper. They're happy they made it home safe to their families, but they know they have no chance in this tournament, sealing their fate in the Triple Crown Series. They weigh in their tuna and mahi and take second in the mahi division.
Yeah, boy! Yeah, boy!
While starting their season strong, the guys would struggle with rough seas, slow fishing, and multiple mechanical issues that would prove to be too much for anyone to overcome. It might have had more lows than highs, but in the end, they came out with a new wealth of knowledge and experience that will ultimately contribute to their resilience and success in years to follow. In a world of risk versus reward, it's not always the big weigh-ins that matter, but the camaraderie built between two friends chasing a dream. All they can do is regroup and plan for next season's long runs and big fish.
No matter if we win or lose, we always learn from every single trip we go. We learn something. And I think it's just another chapter in the book no matter what happens. Some chapters are happier than others. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere.